In the news this week, Australians celebrate National Day as Aboriginals demand reconciliation.
Plus, Fremantle City's alternative celebration declared as a popular hit. Also, new concerns raised over Perth's new freeway connection.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Lung and Danielle Staniskov.
Good evening. Millions of Australians have gathered across the country to celebrate Australia Day with a sense of pride. Despite the festivities, Indigenous Australians have protested against the day as they demanded Australia Day to be moved. Senior reporter Nelson Liu begins our coverage.
Fireworks over Perth's skyline, capping off a day the country came together to commemorate the nation. With Australia Day traditions in full swing, West Aussies gathered across the city to celebrate being Australian.
It's a good chance to spend some time at the beach with my children.
But others had different reasons to celebrate after becoming new citizens.
As you become Australian citizens, it symbolises your sense of belonging to the country you have decided to make your home.
But can I wish you all the best on becoming citizens of Australia.
For many Australians, Australia Day is a day to celebrate the birth of a nation. But for Indigenous Australians, it's not a day to celebrate anything. Indigenous Australians and supporters turned out in the CBD, joining thousands across the country, protesting to change the date of Australia Day. They also criticised Premier Mark McGowan for not supporting the day change, while acknowledging the country's negative history.
What a complete cop-out. If he recognises the truth of our history, the logical conclusion is to change the date.
However, they're confident change is on the way.
I think if we haven't changed the date by next year, the rallies will be even bigger.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
Meanwhile, Fremantle City Council successfully hosted its alternative celebration with live performances by acclaimed Australian musicians. The one-day in Fremantle event was carried out after the council's controversial decision to move the Australia Day festivities. Taylor Hanna has more.
The second year of the One Day in Fremantle event incites a positive change for the future of celebrating being Australian. The debate over changing the date is becoming more widely discussed, with more and more people boycotting the January 26th date.
I think it's great that the conversation is not just about Fremantle anymore, the conversation is broadly about across the whole country.
Brad Pettit, Fremantle Mayor, believes that the history of Australia Day often gets overshadowed by celebrations filled with drinking, partying and fireworks.
Look, I find it hard to party and celebrate on a day that I know is a day of mourning and dispossession for many people. So I would rather have my day of celebration of Australia to be separate from that, and that's what we're doing today.
The One Day in Fremantle event attracted 15,000 people today, all celebrating the history and culture of Australia. Taylor Hanna, WAMN News.
There are calls for the state government to reform the youth justice system after a report from the Productivity Commission showing that Western Australia has the worst rate of youth reoffending in Australia. According to the report, 54.8% of youths aged between 10 to 16 will return to sentenced supervision. The Police Community Youth Centre CEO agrees that some aspect of the system should be reformed.
I think we need to separate the hardened custodial type approach to having a program referral approach through youth at risk, and I think the government's looking at doing that. So they're separating, like the Young Offenders Act, looking at some of that money coming back into the communities.
A builder has been fined and his building registration revoked after misleading the Building Services Board in his registration application. The man became a registered builder using a third party to obtain a building registration, but provided false information about his experience on his application. The Department of Mines, Industry Regulation and Safety says applicants need to follow all requirements when applying for a building licence.
Some people will go to third-party providers to give assistance for a range of valid reasons, and we have no problem with that. You just need to be very careful, though, that it's only helping you to assemble the information that you've got, and that these providers don't start manufacturing experience that you don't have. That's when you'll get into trouble.
The City of Melville is calling for the McGowan government to improve its design of the Murdoch Drive connection to cut out congestion on the road when it's complete. Mayor Russell Aubrey wants more consultation over the final design of the project. Concerned traffic will jump from 11,000 cars to 63,000, turning Murdoch Drive into a road safety black spot.
this road should definitely connect with Bibra Drive, should be easy access onto and off of Farrington Road, and the government needs to look at this design detail once again.
It's not ideal. We think in the long term there'll be a lot of traffic coming off Roe Freeway and onto Murdoch Drive, not only just to get to the Murdoch complex, but further on to get to South Street and Leach Highway.
US President Donald Trump has stated that America's economic growth is underway due to his America First scheme. During his attendance at the World Economic Forum, Mr. Trump told the audience that America's prosperity has also created jobs around the world. However, there are concerns from experts believing Mr. Trump's move to cut company taxes will create a bubble in the US housing market. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's lawyers are seeking the British courts to drop the arrest warrant after Mr. Assange stayed at the Ecuadorian embassy for more than 5 years. Although Swedish authorities dropped the charges against Mr. Assange, British police will still arrest Julian if he leaves the Ecuadorian embassy, and he may face up to 1 year in jail for skipping bail.
And finally this week, the Fringe World Festival has kicked off during the Australia Day long weekend with a series of performances lined up for 31 days. Over 750 shows are available, including the famous Pleasure Gardens, the Ice Cream Factory, the Snowman's Fair and plenty more. This year, more than 70% of the programs are provided by local artists in WA. The events spread across 130 different venues in the city, supported by both state and local governments. The festival will conclude on the 25th of February, with tickets can be purchased online.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. You can catch up with our latest news on our website and Facebook.
From Danielle, myself and rest of the team until 8 o'clock next Sunday, a very good evening to you.
Goodbye.